The aftermath of the station incident moved quickly once the evidence from the pendant reached the proper authorities. Counselor Marath had spent years building his network of corruption, but it collapsed within days once the recordings and data became public. His contacts abandoned him. His allies denied knowing him, and the Velith High Council issued a warrant for his arrest. Yuna watched the news reports from the medical bay of the Meridian Star while a doctor treated the nerve damage from the stun blast. Kira and Solon sat on the bed beside her, their eyes fixed on the view screen as their enemy's world crumbled. "They are showing everything," Solon said quietly. "All the weapons he sold, all the people he hurt. Your parents did this," Yuna reminded them. "They gathered the evidence that made this possible." Kira touched the pendant around her neck. "They wanted to protect our people from someone who was betraying them. I wish they could see that they succeeded." "They know," Yuna said gently. "Wherever they are, they know." The doctor finished her treatment and gave Yuna instructions for recovery. Full feeling would return to her arm within a week, but she needed to rest and avoid strenuous activity. Yuna had no intention of following that advice. There was too much to do. Captain Dowan visited her that evening with a datapad in his hand and a complicated expression on his face. "The Velith government has been in contact," he said. "They want to thank us formally for protecting the children and delivering the evidence. That is good news. They also asked what arrangements have been made for Kira and Solon, since they have no surviving family." Yuna felt her heart clench. She had been avoiding thinking about what would happen. When this was all over, the twins could not stay on the Meridian Star forever. They needed a real home with people who could provide for them properly, but the thought of saying goodbye was more painful than any stun blast. "What did you tell them?" she asked. "I told them we were still discussing options and that the children would have a voice in deciding their future." Kira looked up at Dowan with suspicion. "What options are there?" "Several. Actually, the Velith government has offered to place you in a state care facility until foster arrangements can be made. There are also distant relatives who might be willing to take you in, though they live on the other side of Vela space." Solon moved closer to Yuna instinctively. "Those are all options that take us away from here." "Yes, they are." Yuna took a deep breath and made a decision she had been considering since the moment she found two scared children hiding in her cargo bay. "There is another option," she said. "The Interspecies-Dependent Care Act allows for cross-species guardianship in cases involving orphan children of conflict. I looked it up last night." Dowan nodded slowly. "I was wondering when you would mention that. You knew I was researching it." "Yuna, you have been treating those children like they were your own since the moment you met them. It was not difficult to predict where your thoughts would lead." Kira grabbed Yuna's finger with both hands. "You want to become our guardian? For real, officially? Only if you want me to. This has to be your choice. Both of you." Solon climbed into Yuna's lap and looked up at her with those shimmering eyes. "You fought for us. You bled for us. You made a promise to protect us, and you kept it. Why would we want anyone else?" Tears welled in Yuna's eyes as she wrapped her good arm around both children. "Then I will file the paperwork tomorrow. If the Velith government approves, you will be my legal dependents. You will have a home on this ship for as long as you want it." "What about the rest of the crew?" Kira asked. "Will they accept us?" Captain Dowan laughed. "Child, Jihoon has already started designing a proper living space for you in the crew quarters. He has been planning it since the moment he heard you navigated half the station through air vents to save Yuna's life, for the first time since their world was destroyed." Kira and Solon smiled genuine smiles. Smiles of hope instead of fear. The days that followed were busy with paperwork and interviews and official assessments, Yuna answered. Endless questions from Velas Social. Velas Social? Workers who wanted to ensure she was capable of caring for children of a different species. She learned about Velith's dietary needs and environmental preferences and educational requirements. She studied their language and customs and history through it all. Kira and Solon stayed by her side. They helped her understand things the official documents could not explain, like how Velith children needed physical contact to feel secure, or how their sleep cycles were different from humans. They were patient teachers, and Yuna was an eager student. Marith made one final attempt to stop them. He hired assassins to attack the Meridian Star while it was docked at a friendly port. The attack came in the middle of the night when most of the crew was asleep. Yuna woke to the sound of weapons fire and immediately grabbed the twins from their bed. She held them against her chest and ran toward the most defensible position she could find. The assassins were professionals, but they had underestimated the crew of the Meridian Star. Dowan and Jihoon fought with the ferocity of people protecting family. The hired killers never stood a chance, but one assassin slipped through the defense and found Yuna in the engine room. He raised his plasma pistol with a cold smile. Yuna turned her back to him and curled her body around the twins. The weapon fired. Pain exploded across her back as the plasma burned through her jacket and into her flesh. She fell, but kept her arms wrapped tight around Kira and Solon, refusing to let go even as darkness crept into the edges of her vision. The assassin stepped forward to finish the job. He never saw Jihoon coming. The pilot's attack was swift and brutal. Within seconds, the threat was eliminated and Yuna was safe, but she did not know that because she had already lost consciousness when she woke again. She was in the medical bay with monitors beeping and tubes connected to her arms. The first thing she saw was Kira's face, streaked with dried tears and filled with worry. "She is awake," Kira called out. "Solon, she is awake." The twins climbed onto the bed and curled up against Yuna's sides, careful to avoid her bandages. "You almost died," Solon whispered. "The doctor said another centimeter and the plasma would have hit your spine, but it did not," Yuna said weakly. "And you are both safe. You protected us with your body. You took a shot that was meant for us. That is what family does." Kira buried her face against Yuna's arm. "We were so scared. When you fell, we thought we had lost you like we lost our parents. I am not going anywhere, I promise." Captain Dowan appeared in the doorway with relief written across his weathered features. "The assassins have been dealt with, and station security arrested Marith this morning on the Velith homeworld. He will face trial for everything he has done. It is over then. It is over." 3 months later, the guardianship paperwork was finally approved. Yuna stood before a Velith magistrate with Kira and Solon at her feet, officially becoming their legal guardian under interstellar law. The Meridian Star crew attended the ceremony, cheering when the decision was announced. Jihoon had finished the children's living space in the crew quarters. It was a marvel of engineering, with platforms at heights suitable for Velith proportions and tiny furniture scaled to their size. But it also connected directly to Yuna's room through a small doorway, so the twins could come to her whenever they needed. Months passed, and life on the freighter settled into a new normal. Kira showed a natural talent for engineering and spent hours learning from Yuna in the engine room. Solon preferred navigation and studied star charts with Jihoon until he could plot courses almost as well as the pilot himself. They were no longer frightened refugees. They were crew members, students, and most importantly, family. One evening, Yuna found a galactic news report playing on the common room screen. The headline read, "Human Freighter Crew Adopts Velith Orphans in Historic Cross-Species Guardianship." A commentator was discussing how unusual the case was and how it represented a new era of interspecies cooperation. No one expected this outcome, the commentator said. When reports first emerged about the attack on the Velith colony ship, most assumed any survivors would be lost to the vastness of space. But thanks to the bravery of one human engineer and her crew, 2 children found not just safety, but a new family. Yuna turned off the screen and looked at the twins sleeping on the couch beside her. Kira had one arm thrown protectively over Solon, just as she had done since the day they met. They were so small and so precious. And they had changed everything about Yuna's life. She had spent years running from the grief of losing her brother, believing she was not capable of protecting anyone, that these tiny aliens had shown her that love was not about being perfect. It was about showing up when it mattered and refusing to give up no matter how impossible things seemed. She gathered them carefully in her arms and carried them to their beds. As she tucked them in, Kira stirred and looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "We are home," she murmured. "Yes," Yuna whispered back. "We are home." And for the first time and longer than she could remember, Yuna Park truly believed it. Yuna counted 3 mercenaries blocking the doorway and calculated her odds of survival. They were not good. But that did not matter. What mattered was keeping the twins safe long enough to find another way out. "I do not know any counselor," she said calmly while her eyes searched for exits. "You must have me confused with someone else." The leader, a scarred Torvin with 4 arms and yellow eyes, laughed without humor. "You are Yuna Park, chief engineer of the Meridian Star. Your ship arrived in Bay 47 exactly 23 minutes ago. We have been watching you since you stepped off. Then you have been wasting your time because I'm just here for repair parts. And yet, you keep touching your jacket pocket like you are protecting something precious inside." Yuna froze. She had not realized she was doing that. But the mercenary was right. Her hand had been hovering near the twins, unconsciously, since she entered the shop. The Torvin stepped closer, his forearms spreading wide to block any escape. "The counselor is offering a generous reward for 2 small items that went missing from a ship that was destroyed recently. We think you might know where those items are." "I told you. I do not know what you are talking about." "Then you will not mind if we search you." Yuna backed away slowly until she hit the counter behind her. The shop owner had disappeared into the back room the moment trouble started, leaving her alone with the mercenaries in her pocket. She felt Kira and Solon pressing themselves flat and still. They were so small and so brave, trusting her completely, even though the situation seemed hopeless. That trust gave her strength. "You can try to search me," Yuna said with steel in her voice, "but I promise you will regret it." The Torvin laughed again and nodded to his companions. They moved forward together, expecting an easy capture. They did not expect a human to fight. Yuna grabbed the heaviest item on the counter, a metal toolbox, and threw it at the closest mercenary with all her strength. The toolbox connected with his face and sent him stumbling backward into his partner. The Torvin lunged with 2 of his arms. Reaching for her throat, Yuna ducked under the grab and drove her elbow into his midsection with enough force to make him grunt in pain. Humans were not the fastest or most numerous species in the galaxy, but they were among the strongest and most resilient. Years of working in artificial gravity had made Yuna's muscles dense and powerful. She used that strength now. She grabbed the Torvin's lower arms and twisted, using her body weight to throw him off balance. He crashed into a display shelf and brought an avalanche of parts down on top of himself. The other 2 mercenaries recovered and drew their weapons. Yuna grabbed the metal pipe from the wreckage and faced them with determination. Burning in her eyes, "I am giving you one chance to walk away." They did not take it. The first mercenary fired his stunner, but Yuna was already moving. She rolled to the side and came up swinging. The pipe connected with his weapon arm and sent the stunner flying across the room. She followed through with a strike to his knee that brought him down screaming. The third mercenary was smarter. Keeping his distance and aiming carefully, Yuna had no cover and no time. She charged directly at him, knowing she would probably take a hit but hoping to reach him before he could fire twice. The stunner discharged and pain exploded across her left shoulder. Her arm went numb. But she did not stop. She crashed into the mercenary and brought them both to the ground. They wrestled for control of the weapon while the Torvin struggled to free himself from the debris. Yuna head-butted the mercenary beneath her and felt his grip loosen. She tore the stunner from his hand and pressed it against his chest. "Stay down," she growled. He nodded frantically, his eyes wide with fear. The Torvin finally pushed himself free from the shelf and rose with murder in his yellow eyes. "You are going to die for that," he snarled. Yuna aimed the stunner at him. "Maybe, but not today." She backed toward the rear door of the shop. Keeping the weapon trained on the mercenaries, the Torvin did not follow. He knew she had won this round, but his expression promised that this was not over. She burst through the back door into a maintenance corridor and ran, her left arm hung useless at her side, the stun damage spreading numbness through her shoulder and chest. She needed to find a place to hide and figure out her next move. "Yuna," Kira's tiny voice came from her pocket. "There is a ventilation shaft 10 meters ahead on your right. We can see it through the mesh." Yuna spotted the shaft and pried open the cover with her good hand. It was too small for a human to fit through, but perfect for a Velith. "I need you both to go through here and find your way back to the ship. Tell Captain Cha what happened. We are not leaving you," Kira protested. "This is not a debate. I cannot run fast enough with one arm disabled. They will catch me, and then they will catch you too." Solon spoke up, his voice surprisingly steady. "If we go through the vents, we can reach the station security office. They are only a few sections away. We saw the signs when we were watching through the mesh. Station security might be working with Marith. Then we will find out and come back to warn you. But we cannot just abandon you." Yuna wanted to argue, but she heard footsteps echoing in the corridor behind her. Time was running out. She pulled the twins from her pocket and placed them gently at the entrance to the vent. "Be careful, both of you." "We will," Kira promised, "and we will bring help." "I swear." The twins disappeared into the darkness of the ventilation system, and Yuna turned to face whatever was coming. She did not have to wait long. The Torvin appeared at the end of the corridor with reinforcements. 6 more mercenaries armed with weapons designed to disable rather than kill. "You cannot escape," he called out. "Make this easy and tell us where the children are." "There are no children," Yuna repeated. "You keep asking about something that does not exist." The Torvin sighed and gestured to his team. "Take her. We will make her talk later." Yuna fought with everything she had, even with only one working arm. She was still dangerous. She used the corridor walls to her advantage, forcing the mercenaries to come at her one at a time. She took down 2 more before the numbers finally overwhelmed her. Stun blast caught her in the back, and she fell hard to the metal floor. The Torvin stood over her with satisfaction. On his scarred face, "You fought well for a human, but this was always going to end the same way. The children are gone," Yuna said through gritted teeth. "You will never find them. We will see about that." They dragged her through the station to a private docking bay where a shuttle waited inside. A view screen displayed a face that Yuna recognized from her research. Counselor Marith was older than she expected, with silver skin that had faded to gray and eyes that held no warmth or mercy. "So this is the human who has caused so much trouble," he said through the screen. "I must admit I am impressed. You murdered their parents," Yuna spat. "You destroyed their home and hunted them across space like animals. I did what was necessary to protect my interests. Those children have evidence that could destroy my political career and my business operations. I cannot allow that evidence to reach the High Council. They are just children. They are witnesses to my crimes. And witnesses cannot be allowed to testify. Mareth's casual cruelty made Yuna's blood boil. She strained against the mercenaries holding her. But she was too weak from the stun damage to break free. Kill her, Mareth ordered. And then find those children. They cannot have gone far. The Torvin raised his weapon, but before he could fire, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The docking bay doors burst open and station. Security forces poured in with weapons drawn behind them. Yuna could see Captain Do-Wan and Ji-hoon leading the charge, and perched on Do-Wan's shoulder were two tiny figures pointing directly at the mercenaries. There they are, Kira shouted. Those are the ones who tried to kill her. The battle was brief and one-sided. The mercenaries were outnumbered and outgunned within minutes. They were all in custody, and Yuna was free. Do-Wan helped her to her feet while Ji-hoon kept his weapon trained on the prisoners. The twins found us, Do-Wan explained. They crawled through half the station's ventilation system to reach security. Yuna looked at the tiny children who had saved her life. I told you to go back to the ship. Kira crossed her arms defiantly. And we told you we would bring help. Despite everything. Yuna laughed. These children were stubborn and brave and absolutely wonderful. Mareth's face still glared from the view screen. But now his expression showed fear instead of arrogance. This is not over, he threatened. You cannot protect them forever. Yuna picked up the twins and held them close. Watch me. The warning alarm shattered the quiet of the Meridian. Star with its sharp howling cry. Yuna grabbed the twins and pressed them against her chest as she ran toward the bridge. Her heart pounding with every step, she found Captain Do-Wan standing before the main view screen with a grim expression on his face. Behind them, Pilot Ji-hoon Beek was already strapping himself into the navigation seat. What is happening? Yuna demanded. Do-Wan pointed at the screen where a sleek black ship was closing in on their position. They found us. That vessel has been following us for the last hour, and they just dropped out of hiding. The communication panel crackled to life with an unfamiliar voice. Meridian Star. This is the recovery vessel Nightfall. You are carrying stolen property that belongs to the Velith Confederacy. Surrender the cargo immediately, and no harm will come to your crew. Kira trembled against Yuna's palm. That is them, she whispered. That is the ship that attacked our home. Do-Wan activated the response channel. This is Captain Cha of the merchant freighter Meridian Star. We are not carrying any stolen property. You must have incorrect information. We know the Velith children are aboard your vessel. Hand them over, or we will be forced to take them by force. There are no children on this ship. The communication ended abruptly. And seconds later, a warning shot streaked across the bow of the freighter. The ship shuddered from the near impact, and everyone grabbed onto something solid to stay upright. They're not playing around, Ji-hoon said from the pilot's seat. That was military-grade weaponry. Can we outrun them? Yuna asked. In a cargo freighter against a combat vessel? Not likely. Do-Wan turned to face his small crew with determination in his eyes. We may not be a warship, but we know these shipping lanes better than any raider, Ji-hoon. Plot a course through the Kessler asteroid cluster. Ji-hoon's face went pale. Captain, that cluster is extremely dangerous. One wrong move and we will be torn apart, which is exactly why they will not expect us to go there. Do it. Ji-hoon nodded and began inputting coordinates while the Nightfall fired another warning shot. This one closer than before. The Meridian Star lurched forward as its engines roared to full power. Yuna held the twins carefully as she moved to a seat and strapped herself in with them cradled. In her lap, hold on tight, she told them. This is going to get rough. Kira wrapped her tiny arms around Yuna's thumb while Solon pressed himself against her palm. The asteroid cluster appeared on the View screen like a wall of spinning death. Rocks the size of buildings tumbled through. Space in chaotic patterns, crashing into each other and breaking apart in explosions of debris. Ji-hoon guided the freighter into the chaos with hands that never stopped moving across the controls. Left, right, up, down. The ship twisted and turned through gaps that seemed impossibly small behind them. The nightfall followed with deadly persistence, but the raider ship was larger and less maneuverable, and its pilot was not as skilled as Ji-hoon. It fell behind slowly. Forced to take wider paths around the largest asteroids, they are losing ground, Do-hwan announced. Keep it up. A massive asteroid loomed ahead, spinning directly in their path. Ji-hoon calculated the rotation speed in seconds and threaded the needle. Between the rock and its smaller companion, the Meridian star scraped through with meters to spare. The Nightfall tried to follow but miscalculated. Its wing clipped a smaller asteroid and sent the ship spinning out of control on the view screen. They watched as the raider vessel struggled to regain stability while falling farther and farther behind. We did it, Ji-hoon shouted with relief. But the celebration was short-lived. An alarm sounded from the engineering station, and Yuna's blood ran cold when she saw the readings. We have damage to the port stabilizer and a hull breach in Section 7. We need to make repairs, or we will not survive another jump. Do-hwan cursed under his breath. How long to fix it? Several hours at minimum. And we need replacement parts we do not have. Then we go to Waypoint Sigma as planned. But Marath has people there. We have no choice. It is the nearest station, and we cannot continue without repairs. Yuna looked down at the twins in her lap. Their faces showed the same fear she felt in her own heart. Everything they had done to escape was leading them directly into the enemy's territory. Kira looked up at her with those shimmering eyes. What are we going to do? I do not know yet, but I will figure something out. The damaged freighter limped through the remainder of the asteroid cluster and set course for Waypoint Sigma while Ji-hoon managed the navigation. Yuna took the twins back to her quarters to think. She paced the small room while Kira and Solan watched from their container on the desk. Marath will have people watching the docks, she said aloud. The moment we arrive, they will know we are there. Can we hide? Solan asked quietly. On the ship? Yes, but someone needs to go out and get the repair parts. And that someone will have to be me. Kira stood up with her hands on her hips. Then we come with you. Absolutely not. It is too dangerous. It is dangerous everywhere. At least if we are with you, we can help. Yuna shook her head firmly. You are children. I am supposed to protect you, not put you in more danger. You cannot protect us if the ship falls apart in space, Kira argued. We need those repairs. And you need someone who can fit into small spaces and see things you might miss. The logic was frustrating because it was not entirely wrong. Velith were small enough to go places humans could not, and their sharp eyes could spot threats from angles Yuna would never think to check. But the idea of bringing them into hostile territory made her stomach twist with fear. If I say no, you will try to follow me anyway. Will you not? Kira smiled for the first time since Yuna had met her. Our mother always said stubbornness was the greatest. Velith's strength. Yuna sighed and rubbed her temples. Fine. But you do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. No arguments. No arguments, both twins said together. Ji-hoon entered the room without knocking, his face serious. Captain wants everyone on the bridge. We are approaching Waypoint Sigma. They gathered on the bridge as the massive station appeared on the view screen. Waypoint Sigma was a sprawling structure of connected platforms and docking bays, home to thousands of beings from dozens of species. Somewhere in that maze of metal and light, enemies were waiting for them. Docking control has assigned us Bay 47, Do-hwan announced. Yuna, you have 3 hours to get the parts we need. After that, we leave whether we are ready or not. Understood. Ji-hoon will stay with the ship. I will monitor communications and watch for trouble. If anything goes wrong, get back here immediately. Yuna nodded and turned to leave. She paused at the door and looked back at her captain. Thank you for trusting me with this. Do-won's expression softened slightly. Just come back alive. All three of you. She tucked the twins into a specially designed pocket she had sewn into her jacket during the journey. They were hidden but could see through a thin mesh that looked like decorative stitching from the outside. Remember, she told them, stay quiet and stay hidden unless I tell you otherwise. We remember, Kira whispered. The airlock opened, and Yuna stepped onto Waypoint Sigma with 2 tiny lives depending on her courage. She had never felt more afraid or more determined in her entire life. The station was crowded and noisy, filled with merchants and travelers and workers going about their daily business. Yuna moved through the crowds with purpose, heading toward the repair district where she knew she could find the parts they needed. She kept her eyes moving, watching for anyone who seemed too interested in her presence. Every shadow felt like a threat, every stranger a potential enemy in her pocket. She felt the twins shift as they watched through the mesh. Their small presence was oddly comforting, a reminder of why she was doing this. She reached the repair shop without incident and purchased the stabilizer components and hull sealant they needed. The merchant accepted her credits without question, and she began to think they might actually get through this without confrontation. She was wrong as she turned to leave the shop. 3 figures blocked the doorway. They were not Velith. They were mercenaries of various species, and they were all armed. The counselor would like a word with you, the leader said with a cold smile. He has questions about your cargo. Yuna felt her heart stop, then start again with fierce determination. These people wanted to hurt children under her protection. She would die before she let that happen. Morning came too quickly aboard the Meridian Star, and Yuna woke to find Kira sitting on the edge of the storage container, watching her with those large, shimmering eyes. Solon was still asleep, curled into a tiny ball with his arms wrapped around himself. Did you sleep at all? Kira asked in her small voice. Yuna rubbed her eyes and sat up. A little. I was doing research most of the night. Did you find something? Yes. And we need to talk about it. But first, let me get you both some breakfast. She prepared more small portions of food and woke Solon gently by tapping the side of the container. He opened his eyes slowly and looked around with confusion before remembering where he was. It was not a dream, he said softly. We really are on a human ship. You really are, Yuna confirmed. And you are safe here. As the twins ate, Yuna explained what she had discovered during the night. She told them about the news reports claiming their colony ship was destroyed with no survivors. She told them about their parents' classified research and about Counselor Marath, who seemed to be at the center of everything. Kira listened with growing anger while Solon grew more quiet and withdrawn. Marath. Kira said the name like it was poison. I remember him. He visited our parents once. They did not trust him. Do you remember anything else about him? He wanted to see their research, but they refused. They said some discoveries were too dangerous to share with politicians. Yuna nodded slowly. I think your parents found something valuable in those ancient ruins. Something Marath wanted for himself when they would not give it to him. He decided to take it by force. Solon looked up from his food with fear in his eyes. But we do not have the research. We only have the pendant. We do not even know what is inside. Then we should find out, Yuna said. Whatever is in there might be our only protection against him. She connected her tablet to a specialized scanner and held out her hand to Kira. The tiny girl removed the pendant from her neck and placed it carefully in Yuna's palm. It was no bigger than a grain of rice. To human eyes, But under the scanner, it revealed complex circuitry and data storage systems. "This is advanced technology," Yuna said with surprise. "Far more advanced than anything I have seen from Velith design. Our parents studied ancient things," Kira explained. "Things left behind by races that existed before any of us." Yuna activated the data extraction program and watched as files began appearing on her screen. There were research notes and scientific analyses and three-dimensional maps of underground structures, but the most important file was a video recording. She played it, and the twins gasped when they saw their mother's face appear on the screen. "If you are watching this, then the worst has happened, and we could not protect you ourselves." The woman's voice was calm but sad, and her eyes held the same shimmering quality as her children. "Counselor, Marath has been selling our people's heritage to foreign powers. Weapons and technology from the ancient sites that could destabilize the entire galaxy. We have gathered evidence of his crimes and stored it in this pendant. You must get this information to the High Council on our homeworld. They will know what to do." The recording continued with detailed explanations of Marath's activities and lists of his contacts in criminal organizations. It was enough evidence to destroy him completely when the video ended. Kira was crying silently, while Solon stared at the screen with an expression beyond grief. "She knew," Kira whispered. "She knew she might not survive. That is why she gave me the pendant." Yuna wanted to hold them and comfort them, but she knew words could not heal this kind of wound. All she could do was help them finish what their parents had started. "We will get this evidence to your High Council," she promised. "But first, we need to survive the next 12 hours. A knock on her door made everyone freeze. "Yuna, it is Captain Cha. I need to speak with you immediately." She quickly scooped up the twins and placed them in the storage container. "Stay hidden and stay quiet," she whispered, before covering them with a cloth. She opened the door to find Captain Do-Wan Cha standing in the fondi corridor with his arms crossed over his chest. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "You have been acting strangely since your cargo inspection yesterday," he said without greeting. "You skipped dinner. You missed the morning briefing, and you look like you have not slept." "I was not feeling well," Yuna tried to explain. "Do not lie to me. We have served together for 7 years, and I know when something is wrong." Yuna sighed and stepped aside to let him enter. She closed the door and removed the cloth from the container. Do-Wan's eyes went wide when he saw the two tiny beings huddled inside. "Stowaways," he said with disbelief. "Velith children. Their colony ship was attacked," Yuna explained quickly. "Their parents were murdered, and the person responsible is hunting them. I could not just hand them over to station authorities when we arrive. That is exactly what protocol requires. Protocol would get them killed." Do-Wan was silent for a long moment, studying the twins with an unreadable expression. Kira stared back at him without flinching, her tiny hands balled into fists. "You have spirit," the captain said to her. "Your parents raised you well. They raised us to be brave," Kira replied. "Even when we are scared." Do-Wan turned to Yuna with a heavy sigh. "Tell me everything, and do not leave anything out." She explained the entire situation, showing him the evidence from the pendant and the video recording from the twins' mother. By the end, Do-Wan's expression had changed from skepticism to grim determination. "Marath has connections at Waypoint Sigma," he said. "If he knows the children are aboard, he will have people waiting for us when we dock. I know. That is why I need your help. What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Delay our arrival. Give me time to figure out a plan." Do-Wan shook his head. "We are carrying contracted cargo with delivery deadlines. I cannot justify a delay without legitimate cause." "Then help me find legitimate cause." The captain thought for a moment. Then a small smile appeared on his weathered face. The secondary thruster array has been running rough lately. It might need emergency maintenance that could slow us down for several hours. Yuna felt a wave of relief wash over her. Thank you. Captain, do not thank me yet. We are taking an enormous risk for these children. It could cost us everything if we are wrong. We are not wrong, Yuna said firmly. Dohwan looked at the twins one more time before heading toward the door. Keep them hidden and keep them safe. I will do what I can from the bridge. After he left, Kira climbed out of the container and stood on the desk looking up at Yuna. He believes us, she said with wonder. I thought adults never believed children. Good people believe the truth when they hear it. Yuna replied. Solon finally spoke, his voice stronger than before. Will we really be able to stop Marath? Yuna knelt down so her face was level with theirs. I cannot promise everything will be perfect, but I can promise I will protect you with everything I have. You are not alone anymore. Kira reached out and placed her tiny hand against Yuna's cheek. The touch was barely noticeable, lighter than a feather, but it carried more warmth than anything Yuna had felt in years. Thank you for being our giant, Kira said softly, for the first time since she lost her brother. Yuna felt like she might actually be able to save someone who needed her. The cargo hold of the Meridian Star smelled like old metal and engine grease, and Chief Engineer Yuna Park loved every corner of it. She walked between the tall stacks of supply crates with her inspection tablet in hand, checking seals and scanning for damage after their last jump through hyperspace. The freighter was not fancy or new, but it was solid and reliable, and Yuna had kept it running for 7 years now. She paused near the back wall where emergency rations were stored and frowned at her tablet. Something was wrong with the weight distribution in this section. The sensor showed extra mass that should not be there. Yuna knelt down and shined her flashlight into the narrow gap between two crates. At first, she saw nothing but shadows and dust. Then she saw movement. 2 small figures pressed themselves against the wall, their large eyes reflecting her light like mirrors in the dark. Yuna gasped and stumbled backward. The figures were tiny, no bigger than her hand, with skin that shimmered in soft shades of blue and silver. They had delicate features and thin limbs that trembled with fear. She recognized their species from her training manuals. They were Velith, one of the smaller sentient races in the galaxy. But what were Velith children doing hidden in her cargo hold? Please do not hurt us, a small voice said through a translation device clipped to one of their garments. The speaker was a girl who stood slightly in front of her companion, a boy who looked identical to her twins. Yuna realized the girl continued speaking, her voice shaking but determined. We are not thieves, and we are not spies. We just needed somewhere safe to hide. Yuna sat down slowly on the floor to make herself less threatening, though she knew she must look like a giant monster to these tiny beings. I am not going to hurt you, she said gently, but I need to know how you got on this ship and why you are here. The boy spoke for the first time, his voice quieter than his sister's. Our ship was attacked. Our parents put us in an escape pod and sent us away before the bad people could find us. The pod landed in the docking bay 3 days ago, the girl added. We have been hiding here since then, eating only what we could find. Yuna felt her heart tighten in her chest. 3 days. These children had been alone and scared in the dark, surviving on crumbs and fear. What are your names? She asked softly. I am Kira, the girl said. And this is my brother Solon. I am Yuna, and I promise you are safe now. She reached out her hand palm up and laid it flat on the floor near them. Kira hesitated, then slowly stepped onto Yuna's palm. Pulling Solon with her, Yuna lifted them carefully and held them close to her face so she could see them better. They were beautiful in a fragile way, like living jewelry made of light and color. but their eyes held a pain that no child should ever know. "You said bad people attacked your ship," Yuna said. "Do you know who they were?" Kira nodded. "Raiders, but they were not random criminals. Someone sent them to find us specifically. Why would anyone want to hurt children?" Solon looked at his sister with uncertainty, and Kira seemed to struggle with how much to reveal. Finally, she spoke. "Our parents were scientists. They discovered something important, something someone wanted to keep secret. We think that is why they came for us." Yuna's mind raced with questions, but she could see how exhausted and frightened the twins were. They needed food and rest before anything else. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "I should report you to the captain and follow proper protocol, but I am not going to do that right now. First, I am going to take you somewhere safe and get you something to eat. Then we will figure out what to do next." Kira's eyes filled with tears that she quickly wiped away. "You would do that for us. You do not even know us. You are children who need help. That is all I need to know." Yuna carried them through the corridors of the ship, moving quietly and avoiding the areas where other crew members might see her. She reached her quarters and locked the door behind her. Her room was small but comfortable, filled with personal items and photographs from her life before she joined the merchant fleet. She set the twins down on her desk and looked around for something to make them comfortable. Her coffee mug was taller than they were, and her smallest blanket could have wrapped around them 50 times. She found a storage container, meant for delicate tools and lined it with soft cloth from her sewing kit. "This will be your bed for now," she said, placing it on the desk. "It is not much, but it will keep you warm." Solon touched the soft fabric with wonder. "It is perfect," he said quietly. Yuna went to her food storage and found nutrition bars and dried fruit. She broke off tiny pieces and set them on a small plate in front of the twins. They ate hungrily, and she realized they must have been starving as they ate. Yuna sat down and watched them with a heaviness in her chest. They reminded her of someone she had lost long ago, someone she had failed to protect when it mattered most. Her younger brother Minho had been only 12 when the Kepler station disaster happened. Yuna had been working on a different ship at the time, too far away to help when the reactor failed and took 3,000 lives in an instant. She had never forgiven herself for not being there. She could not change the past, but she could do something now. She could protect these children who had no one else. "Kira," she said gently, "you mentioned your parents discovered something important. Do you know what it was?" Kira reached up and touched a small pendant hanging around her neck. "Our mother gave me this before they put us in the escape pod. She said to keep it safe, no matter what. She said everything important was inside. Do you know what is stored in it?" "No, I never looked. I was too scared." Yuna nodded thoughtfully. Whatever was in that pendant had cost these children their family and their home. It must be something powerful enough to kill for. "We should find out what it contains," she said. "But not tonight. Tonight you need to sleep." She dimmed the lights and watched as Kira and Solon curled up together in their makeshift bed. Within minutes, they were asleep, holding on to each other like they were afraid of being separated. Yuna turned to her computer terminal and began searching through recent news, reports and communication logs. What she found made her blood run cold. A Velith colony ship had been attacked 5 days ago in the Outer Rim territories. The official report said it was destroyed by raiders with no survivors, but clearly that was not entirely true. She dug deeper and found references to 2 Velith scientists named counselors, Howen and Joran, who had been conducting research on ancient ruins discovered on their homeworld. Their work was classified at the highest levels, and the person who had classified it was a powerful politician named Counselor. Yuna leaned back in her chair and stared at the screen. Someone with authority had ordered an attack on a civilian ship and covered it up. Someone was hunting these children, and in 12 hours, the Meridian Star would arrive at Waypoint Sigma, a station where Counselor Mareth had significant political connections. She looked over at the sleeping twins and made a silent promise, whatever it took. Whoever stood in her way, she would keep them safe. No one would hurt these children while she still had breath in her body.